Well, if you read the title, you know what I'm doing today, and, well, it's not my first one. Some friends and I went to a party, and we needed some Star Wars props, so I built this guy and the other two for them, and I really enjoyed the process. But that's not why I'm doing it. I need a prop, and I need one that's got a blade, and I can't really stick a blade inside this one because there's stuff in there. In fact, the stuff that's in there is moving parts. I think, from looking on the internet, that I may be the only one to ever put moving parts in a lightsaber. At least I choose to believe that. I wanted to make a cool one with even more moving parts, really cool stuff going on all over the place, and now I might make a video and a lightsaber like that in the future, but today I need to keep it simple. When it comes to making lightsabers, there are a couple of schools of thought. People that want to make exact replicas of the lightsabers that were in the Star Wars movies, and those that want to just kind of do their own thing. The problem with making replicas is, especially when it comes to Luke Skywalker's replica, is it can be very difficult to come by the parts, and of course, very expensive. Luke Skywalker's lightsaber was actually made out of some photographic equipment, which today is considered vintage, and kind of ticks off the photographic guys who think that you shouldn't tear apart vintage stuff to make toys. And they also, I think, still like to collect and or use that equipment. But either way, it's going to be very expensive to try and gather those parts. Now, I think the other school of thought where you make something that you want to make is just as valid as having an exact replica, because they made a lot of lightsabers for the movies, and when they did, they pretty much made it the way I'm about to. They just picked up a bunch of pieces of junk a lot of times from plumbing supplies, which is what is commonly used, to make those lightsabers. So I don't see why making your own isn't just as valid. They say to invent something, you need a little bit of inspiration and a big pile of junk. Well, I have the junk. When it comes to inspiration, you really shouldn't limit yourself. I don't know if it's true or not, but I always heard, like, when people go into prison, there's that big guy Bubba that everybody has to suck up to in order to, get protection. I heard that crazy beats Bubba every time. Strap one of these things to your lightsaber, and the fight's over. Oh. So I've gathered some parts here, and I don't really have a method that I use to create stuff. What I usually do, and kind of what I'm doing now, is I just sort of put things together and see what fits, and then see if I like the way it looks, and if I do, then I keep going with that theme. So I do usually have a beginning idea. In this case, this piece was already cut in my junk pile, so it's right about the right length, and it's a good size. So I think I'm going to start with this as a base, and then I like the idea of cutting it out and having something exposed inside, so I think I'm going to go with that theme. And then this piece fits inside quite nicely with friction, so I can hammer it in. And I'm thinking that's okay. That's just kind of my reasoning, but I'm no artist. Okay, so like I said, I started with this little piece of scrap I had laying around. And as it turns out, this diameter fits almost exactly inside this diameter, so with a little persuasion. But that's good, because that means it'll stay nice and tight. And I'm fortunate, I have one of those little cheap Chinese mini lathes, and that is perfect for this kind of work, because this would not fit inside until I bored it out a little bit. So now what I can do is go down. I'll step back. I can go down inside here. It takes a little second. There we go. It fits right in. So now the blade goes all the way to the base, about that deep, so I can put a screw through there to hold it in place. And on the other end, as you can see, it wobbles around a lot, so I'm going to need to tighten that up somehow. So like all good things, lightsabers should be used. So I don't need this to have any kind of like surgical steel type precision, but I would like to make the finish on this look a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is put it in the lathe, spin it fairly slowly, and just run some sandpaper over it, and it'll give it a nice brushed appearance. Okay, having a mini lathe really is super cool for this kind of thing, because it's almost always round when it comes to lightsabers. So I put this guy on the end, and I had to turn a little piece of this to take up the gap because it wouldn't fit on. And now it turns and it can come off. So I may have to put a little set screw in it, or maybe a little glue or something like that. But it fits kind of nicely, and it's not exactly the look I wanted to go for, but just really wanted to get rid of this. So one of the problems I'm facing here is that I usually like to put all kinds of things inside here, usually some batteries so that I can power some LEDs or a little motor or something like that. But in this case, because I want to stick the blade down inside, the outside diameter of the blade and the inside diameter of this tube are so close that I really can't mount anything in there, otherwise it's going to hit when I try and slide it in. So anything I'm going to do to this, I think I'm going to have to do on the outside. You can see that fits on there perfectly. It's a little loose, it would come off. And the same thing goes for this part, right on there. So it's kind of loosey-goosey, but that's okay because then I can drive like a set screw through there or even glue it or something. And let me see. If I take the blade and I push it in, it lines it up perfectly with the bottom. It just fits right in perfectly. So let me pull back up a little bit for that. So this is going to work just fine. Alright, so to add a little detail, I wanted to put some holes in the end here, and I wanted 6 evenly spaced holes. So what I did was, I mean, it doesn't have to be super duper precise. So what I did is I put it in the chuck, and then I just made a dot where each one of these 3 are, and then I stuck it in the chuck again halfway between them, and they look pretty good. Here's a line that you can see, and that way I can put 3 more dots and I'll have 6 evenly spaced holes. Alright, so I had some sort of square rectangular tubing, and I cut this piece off the end, and it's bigger than I really wanted because it's going to go on here like this. But I decided with the length of this thing that it can handle it. So I cut a little sort of half moon out of the end here so that it curvature fits. And I'm going to tack weld it on, but I'm going to tack weld it on from the inside so you don't see the tack weld on the outside. Although it does have a bit of a blemish here, but my lightsabers are used. Okay, so I kind of taped it on to make sure that I could hold it and see if it was in the way. And in fact, the fact that it's long may even be better, because then I can, if I put a button here for some lights or something later, or I can reach it, and it's a long thing so it can handle a longer whatever that is. So I think it's alright. Okay, so I drilled and tapped a couple of screws about 1.5 inches apart so that I could add a lid to it for future use. I also put a hole down the bottom in case I wanted to run some wires down inside. I don't think I'm going to, but it's better to do that before you tack things in place. So I think now I'm going to try and put some kind of a little grip down in here, and I'm probably just going to call it a day, make this one really simple. And of course I'll paint the plastic parts. One day maybe I'll do something a little bit more ambitious, but today I wanted something simple. So. Okay kids, today I'm disproving math. I'm having a little difficulty with this, so this ought to be good for the comment section. I need to calculate how much goes around. This guy. So I just measure its diameter at right where I want to do it, which is, I'll show you, hopefully you can see that. I'll move it around a little bit, 1.16. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure I remember the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r, r being the radius. 2 times r is the diameter. So theoretically, pi times the diameter would give me the right length. So come to my calculator. .16 times, and I'll go ahead and use pi just to be safe, 3.14, right? Equals 3.64 inches. Okay. So I cut a piece. And if you lay it in there like that, you can see Oh, it's only 3.59. So let me go to 3.64. Maybe there's my problem. Okay, but look at the gap. Teeny tiny. Now, I wrap it around as tightly as I can in the location that I chose, and I am pulling it, I promise you, very, very strongly together. Look how far apart I am. I expected them to be off a little bit. I mean, I didn't cut it exactly to 3.64, but I mean, that's a 1/4 of an inch missing there. Guess I'll just wing it. Okay, so what I've done to put the grip on is, you can see I took a piece of the belt. I had to cut it 4 inches, not 3.64 inches, to get it to be close. But you can see it's still got a bit of a pucker here, which I really, really don't like. But I think I can maybe trim it a little bit, and maybe it won't be so noticeable when I put a second and third piece next to it. And I went in and put the line in line with the line, and I even tried to get the clamp so that the piece underneath would press more on that spot, but it just didn't quite work. I hope you can see that on the camera. But I think overall it's not going to be that noticeable, and maybe I can do some work on it afterward. So just put some epoxy on there, and I'll just probably leave it overnight or something so that it can glue, dry, and then I'll pull the clamp off. And I'll do maybe 2 or 3 more, or maybe the whole, I'm not sure how much I have, but I'll just do a whole bunch more here, and we'll see how it comes out. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and put some LEDs in here anyway. I drilled a hole and sort of press fit them in, and then I'll trim all this up and solder it together, and then I'll put a resistor in there and a switch, and good to go. Okay, so on this side here, I just tack welded this little box that's got a couple of half circles on there so that the battery can fit in there like that. Okay, so I've attached a 12-volt battery to the outside right here, and I use this little leather strap to do it. These straps are used to tie cables back, like your cell phone cords and stuff like that. They're pretty cool, but I don't really recommend them because they only snap to 1 diameter. You can't cinch anything down. So if it works out to be the right size for you, then it's great. But I thought I'd have other uses for them, like this. It's not exactly the look I was going for, but it's alright. And I found this wire tie or wrap stuff for cars, and I wrapped it around the battery so that it didn't look like an Ever-Ready. And now I'm just going to keep, I got attached to it, and then finish the electronics, put the top on, and I'm getting pretty close. A little bit of paint. So to feed the circuit power from the battery, I intend to use, so here's the battery, I intend to use this coax. It's 141 semi-rigid cable is what they call it. And what you do is you score it fairly deeply right here with a razor blade, or I used an X-Acto, all the way around. And then you can take a pair of pliers and it'll crack, and then you can pull this off. I'll show you. Sorry, I'm hand holding the camera, so I do it off camera, but you can see there. Now I got a center conductor there in the middle surrounded by Teflon. So I'll shave a little bit off of the end there, and then I can attach that to the battery. I'll make 2 of those, feed it through what they call the activation box, I've now learned, up through, and I'll put another one on the other side. And here it is in its glory. So I've painted the white parts black, and then I gave the whole thing a clear coat. Now I'm going to open this up, finish off the electronics, and should be done. Okay, so I finished everything up. Here it is. I thought I would run you through some of the features. As you can see, I painted all the white parts black, and I attached this with a set screw basically, and there we go. And put the battery on the outside, and this little leather thing wasn't really tight enough, so I put a zip tie and then just covered it with the leather thing, so the zip tie is actually holding on. I did something that might be a bit controversial and dangerous, I don't know. I hope this is in focus, but I soldered the battery in place. I think bad things can happen when you put a lot of heat on a battery like that, but I just left the heat on as for short a period of time as I could. One thing I'm not happy about is this little tiny micro switch here is very poor quality, and you can see, I'm going to show you the LEDs that come on when I turn on, and you can, came right on of course, but it was blinking and doing other things before, so I realize I'm not getting my face on there. Aren't you lucky? You get to avoid it. One thing I noticed is you can see how when I turn it, I think it looks really cool like that, but when I turn it toward the camera you can see how bright they really can be when you're looking directly at them. I just glued this part on, and I put a screw through there. That holds the blade in place, and it also holds the end on. But that's about it. It's just very simple, and I think I don't know, I think it'll work great as a prop. It's not the prettiest thing, it's not the coolest design. I've got a whole bunch of other ideas I think I'd like to try, but this will suit my purposes. Guess the only thing left to see is, does it work? Pink blade. I don't think I like that. I'm gonna go tune the crystal and get rid of that pink. Okay, I've retuned the crystal. Now let's see what color it comes out as. Are you kidding me? Well, that's it. It's done. As usual, I don't have a way to end these videos, but I still have a few of those little clips, so we'll just call it, like The Daily Show, your moment of zen. Here it is, your moment of zen.